So welcome back to Major Impact, and as always, I hope you guys have been enjoying the show, the hot topics, the stories. We're going to bring it back and talking about domestic violence and breast cancer awareness. So let's talk about it. But we don't want to close out the month without talking about domestic violence awareness. So ladies, it's something that people don't want to talk about. It's a tough topic, and to be honest, sometimes there's embarrassment, sometimes there's shame, sometimes there's guilt. And so, I hope that by us kind of talking a little bit more and sharing about this, it will help other people say, you know what, it's okay. It's not my fault. And what can I do to kind of be safer moving forward? So growing up, if you don't know my story, it was filled with foster care. It was filled with, being a teen mom. And then I also had both of my parents struggled with addiction, right? So both my mother and my father struggled with addiction, which was one reason why I was in and out of foster care. And let me just say that for me, it was a catalyst for me not wanting to raise my children that way. It was a catalyst for me saying, my son will not grow up like me. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to be stable. I'm going to have legacy. I'm going to break the barriers. So because I'm a minority, I'm a female, I was a teen mom, I was in foster care, all the odds were stacked against me, but God, right? Because we're on this platform sharing because we're business owners, we're leaders, and we're helping people across the nation. So the takeaway for everybody is do not be a victim of your circumstance, right? Mm-hmm. Those afflictions that all of us are sharing today on this platform are the thing that means that you need to break the cycle. You need to work harder. You need to lead by example, and it's going to be your motivation to make sure that's the story for you and or the generations coming behind you. So you're not a victim of your circumstance. That's your reason to go harder.
Terry, thank you for sharing your story as well, because I think both of you will help men and women watching the show. So Ellie, can we start with you? Do you mind sharing, when did you know that you were in an abusive relationship?
Yes. Oh my goodness. So my first marriage, I got married when I was 19, almost 20 the first time. And, one thing that I reflect on is, an abusive marriage doesn't start as abusive, right? You think it's just love and you're like, oh my God, this is the one. And, then slowly but surely little signs start to come up. So, there was a few instances at the beginning where, we would play fight, right? It's like, okay. Then there became times where, he would just hit me. And I think that you don't want to accept that this is domestic violence. We tend to think of it as, oh, maybe we're just having relationship problems. Maybe I should just not do something to make him mad. But, I think after my first son was born, when I was 21, that's when it really became apparent to me that this was not a good environment. And it was challenging because it took me 7 years to leave. I'm sure that's something we'll talk more about in the show, but one thing that people don't always understand about domestic violence is that even when we know that it's happening, we know it's not right for someone to be putting their hands on us. But when you have children, this person is making you believe that it's not their fault they're hitting you, that it's your fault they're hitting you. So you begin thinking, well, maybe if I just don't do that, this won't happen. They're a good person. I'm just doing something to make them upset. So a big pattern in domestic violence is that even from the first moment we see it, we stay. We see women who are in marriages for a long time, and some, don't make it out. So it's just so important to really be able to recognize the pattern and help empower women to say, you know what, it's not a me problem, it's a him problem. And I got to get out of here, which I eventually did. God always gives you the signs. But, God can't just come down from the sky and pull me by my head and say, girl, leave. So it was just like he had to wait for me to finally see it for myself. And I remember one day I woke up really early in the morning and I just started praying. And I was like, God, at this time I had 4 children. So I had my son, my daughter, and I had just given birth to the twins. They were about 2 months old. And I just got up early in the morning and I said, God, I need your guidance because I don't know if this is where I'm supposed to be. I don't know if this is where me and my children will flourish. And I said, if I need to go, please send me a sign, just one more sign. And I kid y'all not, that day, later on in the day, we got into a fight. I wanted to breastfeed the twins and he wanted to use my pregnancy pillow because, it's large and comfortable. And I was like, well, sorry, you can't take a nap with that because I need to breastfeed the twins. And, long story short, he decided that that was a reason for him to put his hands on me. I just lost it. It's always a moment where the straw breaks the camel's back. And that was definitely the moment, and I thought about my children. I thought about my newborn twins. And I'm like, I just brought 2 humans into this world at the same time. There is no way I'm going to accept you doing this to me any longer. And that was the last day we were ever in the same household. So, I left with the support of my family. So that was really my escape, and it was so challenging, even though I knew that I was so tired and it was so wrong. It's hard because now I have 4 kids. It's not like I'm leaving as a single person or with just one. But again, once you get to this moment where you just are like, no one can live this way. And I think for me, a wake-up call as well was my children, because I had to think about my daughter at the time she was 2. If she's old enough to see this or hear this or understand what's going on, this is creating a pattern, right? Whether I know it or not, this is going to contribute to some sort of trauma in her, where when she's 18, 19, 20, 23, 25, maybe some man is going to think it's okay to put his hands on her. And because she saw her mom stay for so long, maybe she's going to accept it too. And I think that terrified me more than anything. It really wasn't me, right? I was upset, but I thought about my daughter and I thought about my kids seeing it, being in the house when it's happening. And I just said, you know what? They deserve better. Like, they deserve to not see this as normal. And I think for women who struggle with domestic violence or who know someone that struggles, really encourage the woman to leave for the child. Sometimes she's not going to have the strength to leave for herself, but you can encourage her to leave for the sake of her children, because that's something mothers all relate to,
Absolutely. Oh my God, that's such a powerful story. And it changes the lives of our children. And you are now in a wonderful marriage, but we'll get to that with your king. But Terry, jump in here, because, your story is powerful too. And it triumphs and shows that you can't be stopped, right? You have accomplished so much despite your circumstances. So what would you like to share? What helped you push through, even when society said you are not supposed to make it?
One thing that I can really, and I'm so glad you said it can relate to with your story and mine, is that I was going through being, toxic and just being angry and mad and being an out of control teen by me being, in foster care and moving around and just no adult supervision. We're just going to be honest, right? Mm-hmm. But when I had my son, when I became a mom at 17, that's when it was like a switch. It was like, oh, he will not grow up like me. Like I say it, and it's the truth. It's like he gave me a reason to live. I was on the road of self-destruction. So, lady, that what you said was so key. Like, sometimes we will take the abuse, we question, we have doubt, we have the what ifs, like having children and moving, that all these things come into play. But when you're like, hold on, I don't want my son to see this. I don't want my daughter to see this. For me, it was like, I don't want my son to grow up like this. Your level of exposure will change their life. And so that's so critical. If you don't have the strength yourself, think about everybody who's impacted by your decision to stay. And I think that sometimes that will be that added boost. And I love that you had support. If you have support, reach out to people, because sometimes they don't know. So it was a blessing that you had support that help you on that journey. This has been a jam-packed episode. We hope that you learned something. We hope that you are inspired. We hope that you got some actionable items, some next steps to help you on wherever your journey is. And so that's all we have time for. So we will see you next time on Major Impact on the DCW every Saturday morning. And if you want to go binge watch past episodes, we recommend it. You're going to connect online and also follow us on Instagram to get the latest, fastest updates, clips, and next steps. And so we will see you next week. Thank you for tuning in.